did stick out to me and has it's kind of a spooky story when you think about it, you know. Is a little girl named Katherine Van Alst. I think that's how you pronounce that name. But I mean, when I first watched her story on YouTube, I was kind of freaked out a little bit. I was like, I don't know about this. Is some crazy stuff. So I wanted to do my own little thoughts on this story. Katherine Van Alst. The Arkansas wilderness at Devil's Den State Park swallowed up Katherine Van Alst. Now, if you watch Missing 411, which I'm sure a lot of people do that are into this type of phenomenon or this type of mystery, you know that his theory and one of his clues to his stories are that many of these people who go missing, many of these disappearances happen around parks and areas inside the parks with the name of devil or something to do with that type of thing. And so let me read this. This is from How Stuff Works, Survival in the Wilderness. 8-year-old Katherine Van Alst disappeared from Devil's Den State Park near Arkansas's Ozarks National Forest, where she and her family were camping. Van Alst apparently was playing with her brothers when she wandered off and got lost and couldn't find her way back. What makes her disappearance remarkable is that she was found 6 days later. She was eerily calm. University of Arkansas student Porter Chadwick was part of the search party that found her. He told the press that when he found her, she walked stoically out of a cave and just said, "Here I am." She had survived on berries and spent nights sleeping in the caves. Many other hikers have gotten lost in that part of the Ozarks and have not been as lucky as she was. Now that sounds pretty calm and tame, but there are parts of this story that they left out quite a bit of this story. Eerie vanishing and reappearance of Katherine Van Alst. This is from Journal Online, and this is published April 14, 2021. I'm going to read from this. The author's name is Brent Swanser. Among the many cases of vanishing people on record, some of them seem to stand out as particularly odd. Some of these cases attract about them numerous weird clues, and there are even some occasions in which the missing suddenly comes back. Although this does not always solve the mystery, on occasion these reappearances bring with them a whole new enigma. With the victim missing time, unable to express where they've been or give details of how they got there, it's like they vanished into thin air and then reappeared. One such case is that of a little girl who vanished off the face of the earth, only to reappear, and her disappearance was even stranger than it already was. Now, I told you when I watched this video on YouTube about this, and I don't, it's probably in my history, I would have to go look. This case, grabbed me. And it wasn't just so much the case, but it was the picture that was supposedly taken when she was found. And I know back in what was this, 1946, they probably didn't have the best cameras as they do now. And it was a black and white photo, but I'm telling you, her face just did not look human. And it could have been just 6 days in the wilderness, surviving on berries or whatever had taken place. I'm going to go on ahead and read from this. Located in Washington County near West Fork, Arkansas, is Devil's Den State Park, a 2,500-acre wilderness that is a magnet for tourists. Here people come to engage in all sorts of outdoor activities: picnicking, camping, hiking, horseback riding, and sandstone caves, etc. People also come to hunt for fossils, and there are many ravines and rock shelters in the park. This area is a popular destination for families to enjoy the great outdoors. In 1946, the Van Alst family made their way here for a fun trip to do just that. but it was soon to prove to be anything but fun. One day the family were near their campsite, and their family's 8-year-old daughter, Katherine, was playing in the creek in her bathing suit as her brothers played in the water, when at some point she wandered off and seemingly vanished. Now, in the video that I watched on YouTube, the story differs a little bit. A woman who was there with her family says that the little girl was getting into the deeper part of the water. They were in like a little creek area that was, people would go to swim, soak, float around and soak. And the little girl was coming over to a part of the area that was a little deeper. And her brothers were kind of off to themselves, and the woman says that she told her, you're getting into the deeper water. I'm afraid you might, you should probably go back over where your brothers are. You don't want to get out into the deep water. And she says the little girl, as far as she knew, went back over. And I'm sure that when she told this, they probably searched the water. They probably searched the deeper parts of the water just to see, because that is where she was last seen, So it was just thought that she had gone off for a bit and maybe had even walked back to the campsite that was only a stone's throw away. And there was really no alarm at this point. But she did not answer the calls of her family when they called out to her, and so they began to search the woods and campsite and found no sign of her. The panicked family then notified park officials, and the search began. Searchers launched a meticulous, methodical search of the entire area for several miles, but with every moment that went by it seemed critical, since the little girl was barefoot and dressed in nothing but a bathing suit, hardly the sort of clothing that should be worn in the woods. Search went on for 6 days with no sign of the missing girl, and hope was beginning to vanish, until at one point a team of volunteers were in the forest and walked past a cave from which little Katherine suddenly appeared and casually waved at them. According to those who were there, she was extremely spookily calm and almost in a daze, as she simply uttered, "Here I am." What made this completely mind-boggling was that spot had already been searched. She was found 7 air miles away from the campsite, and 600 feet. I don't know how many air miles is ground miles. I really don't know. I know that they measure air miles. You get there faster. But on foot, what they're saying is on foot it would be more of a treacherous walk. It's not like you're walking down a little roadway straight 7 miles. She was also 600 feet higher in elevation than the place where she originally disappeared. This was just the first of many odd details. The most glaringly bizarre thing was that this 8-year-old little girl had walked an estimated 30 miles zigzagging course. See, now that's 30 miles on the ground, 7 miles in the air, because I guess what they're saying is, a helicopter can fly around in a path, and on ground you have to, go across rocks and trails and forests. And so it says the area is riddled with rocky terrain and steep hills. This was one of the most perplexing things for authorities, was how she managed to cover that much distance in 6 days through this challenging landscape barefoot. Her feet were described as swollen, and she was also covered in insect bites and scratches, so it was apparent that she had done some wandering, but she also didn't seem to be in as nearly poor condition that one would have suspected. And she had covered so much distance that even a properly equipped adult would have had a tough time matching it. She also seemed to be in better shape than one would expect. The cave she was in just happened to have a freshwater spring, Despite various cuts and bruises, she was not much worse for wear. All things considered, another oddity was the place she was found had already been searched by aircraft and tracker dogs. So why hadn't she suddenly appeared? And why had she been so remarkably calm? The strangeness of this would continue from there. So according to missing person researcher David Pilatus, author of Missing 411, Western United States and Canada, there were several oddities when police actually spoke to the girl. She allegedly claimed that she did not remember much about the 6 days where she was missing, merely saying that she had eaten berries to stay alive and found herself in that cave. Pilatus has mentioned that the area was overgrown with many types of poisonous berries, so that how did she know which ones to eat to not get sick or poisoned? The girl also supposedly made some strange remarks. She explained that when she had gone missing, she had simply been unable to find the campsite or her brothers, despite being right near them. And she would also claim that on several occasions, she had shouted out to people searching for her that she could see them, and apparently they could not see or hear her. She also says that when she seen the tracker dogs, but she had also seen the tracker dogs, but had been too afraid to go out because she was afraid of dogs. According to Pilatus, I hope I'm saying his name right, Pilatus. She also made the strange mention of how she had slept in a warm, grassy bed on the first night that she went missing. All these clues have fired up quite a bit of speculation as to what really happened to Katherine, much of it quite sensational and leaning to oddities. Now, some of the comments that I read on Reddit and probably on YouTube as well point to the possibility that this was a hoax. Some people say that they believe that there's no way this child could have gotten to that area on her own, and disappearance of national parks, Devil's Den girl missing. Okay, I'll read from this when I finish. But like I was saying, some people just believed that this was a hoax, and they just thought that maybe the parents were in on this to get publicity, to get some attention, maybe to get free gifts for their kids, or money, and maybe that they coaxed and coached the little girl into pretending to have been in the woods this whole time. I don't know if the police investigated that and looked into that, and I'm sure that they would know if the parents were away from the search parties and stuff for any great period of time, So one theory is that she was lured away from her family by a strange force, possibly even carried to where she was. Everything from fairies to Bigfoot to UFOs have been suggested, and much has been made of the fact that this area was once feared as a place of spirits by local tribes. Yet there has been some criticism to how the case was presented, and that the more outlandish elements have been emphasized to make it seem more mysterious than it really was. However, all the seemingly strange clues and the fact that a little girl in a swimsuit was found alive 6 days after she went missing in this thick, rocky wilderness have managed to keep this case making the rounds. What happened to this girl? I wonder what happened to her afterwards. I wonder what her life was like after all this. Maybe these people, some people believe, maybe they cross over into a second world, or like they're in another world, like another them, or like a clone. Some people believe that. Some people believe that it is some type of supernatural like UFO maybe came down and abducted her and did experiments and then placed her back there. Others believe it might have been a Bigfoot or some other type of animal or some type of like non-human entity or something protected her. Maybe some type of God, perhaps, guardian angel, some protector of this child, led her to that cave in order for her to be able to see the helicopters. Maybe they could see her, the search dogs, knowing that there was water in that cave. Something had to have protected her from eating poisonous berries. Was there some invisible to her entity there with her? I don't know. Just as nobody else knows, and just as these theories of fairies and Bigfoot, maybe it could be something as simple as a protective guardian angel or God himself. We don't know. But I'm going to read one more story about this, and then I'll move on. From Unexplained on Reddit. And this was posted by RZR, I guess Razor Jacket, 3 years ago. And how far did she get? Devil's Den girl goes missing and is found 30 miles from where she disappeared, unharmed in a cave 6 days later. What started off as a typical affair ended in a mysterious disappearance and the unlikely recovery of a safe and sound child who had been missing a whole 6 days in the wilderness. Found 30 miles away and 600 feet above the point where she disappeared, the child emerged from a shallow cave with the strange and mysterious declaration, "Here I am." Authorities noticed no signs of a struggle or violence. The child was wearing the same swimsuit that she was wearing when she went missing. It just says it was a delayed reward for her father, John Van Alst. Worn out from 3 days and nights of trapping the heavily timbered park as the leader of one of the numerous searching parties, the father had been ordered by sheriff to refrain from any further searching. The child was found yesterday afternoon, shortly after Van Alst had been carried to a tourist camp to rest. 3 fellow employees of a Kansas City printing company came in to aid with the hunt. They also brought him breakfast, and it was then that they glanced at a newspaper reporting about the child's rescue. Now here's a mention of the mother. If I'd read a little farther, I would have said this. Mrs. Van Alst and the sheriff had been unable to contact him because he had been carried to this camp because he was exhausted and worn out. Van Alst nor his daughter had very much to say when they first met, with the mother looking on. They embraced, and later she told some of her experience. The child has been missing since Monday when she lost her way, returning from the creek where she was playing with her brothers. "I just couldn't find it," she said. She spent her first night laying in the grass, that's in parentheses, and subsequent nights in caves eating wild berries and drinking water. Porter Chadwick of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, was the first in the search party to reach her. She walked out of the cave very calmly and said, "Here I am." Her first words to him were, "Thank you." She was barefooted and clad in a play suit, her body covered with insect bites. Today, a nurse said she was getting along swell. I'm sure being in the wilderness for 6 days, having wandered around lost and scared a little child, she probably was, pale and trying to smile from her hospital bed in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Katherine, 8, tells her parents of Kansas City, Missouri, how she lived in a cave and ate wild berries for 6 days while being lost in the mountains of Devil's Den State Park. I think this is probably the same story that I just read. And then there's some stuff on YouTube. There's all kinds of videos you can find on YouTube about this. I do recommend this Hillbilly Dead Time Stories episode 22 on www.audacy.com, Hillbilly Horror Stories. I really like that name. I wish I would have come up with that. And there are some photographs here. There is a thread on Reddit of Missing 411, and you can find a lot of these stories on that. This is basically just saying that this David Pilatus is a con artist, but he didn't make this story up. He might have embellished some stuff on his podcast or his YouTube channel. I ain't saying that he did. I know there are speculations about some of these stories being, and everybody wants their story to get more airtime and more like, look at me, you know, so they want to like really tell more details. Probably most of the details about this story are what are found in the local newspapers, and this was covered across the country. There were stories about this in Pittsburgh. I don't know what became of this little girl after she grew up. I looked to see if she might still be alive. Yeah, I'm not finding any more information about her. So whatever happened to her after she came out of those hills doesn't seem to be, you know, there doesn't seem to really be any follow-up to it. So I couldn't find any follow-up on her. I'll keep looking. I'll keep looking and see if I can find anything that maybe she might have talked about this later on as she got older. Maybe details came back to her as she got a little bit older, and whether she shared that or not, or maybe she just never did remember anything about it. Whatever did happen to this child, whether it was human being or some phenomenon or just a child who just kept going, you know, she just kept walking because she was trying to find something. I mean, this would exhaust an adult, you know. This would absolutely exhaust a trained hiker. They, after 30 miles in 6 days, hiking over rocks, up the sides of a like a mountainside, or like up mountains, into caves, across forest and wilderness. You know, I mean, I don't know. Arkansas's probably got black bears. I don't know about mountain lions and all that kind of stuff in that area. I don't know what is native to those places. I would be kind of surprised to think that they had mountain lions or panthers or anything, but stranger things, you know. But definitely black bears. And I don't know, something protected her. Something was with her. And something kept her safe until she was found, you know.